Can you hear me? Am I mic'd? Awesome.
Sound good? Excellent.
So I'm Carolyn, and that's Avleen. Don't get us mixed up.
Yeah. Everyone, thank you for coming to our tutorial, The Interruptive Nature of Operations. We're going to be covering a lot of content today. We're going to go over a lot of causes of interruptions, the way they impact us, going over different ways to handle them and deal with them to make us a little bit more productive.
So we're going to cover the impact. We're going to cover how you can fix them. We're going to talk about culture and how culture impacts how you handle interruptions. And we're going to specifically deal with remote workers. So basically, interruptions are all around us. We've been living with interruptions our whole lives, but professionally, we've definitely been living with interruptions. Why?
So there was a study done in 2013 by Michigan State University that found that small interruptions, for example, your phone getting a text message, has huge impacts on your ability to continue doing work. So much so that a short, like 2.8 seconds is about the amount of time it takes to look at your phone, understand what's happening there, and put it down if you don't want to take any action on it. And little events like that can have pretty astounding impacts on doing simple tasks like setting letters or numbers in order, just very simple, basic things.
So imagine the impact if you're doing a more complicated task. That study was based on just doing really simple tasks.
Right. Basics is a research firm in New York, and in 2009, I believe, they looked at the cost of interruptions to the US economy, and they came to $588 billion a year. I'm not quite sure how they came up with this number. I looked at the study, but it seems to hold out. But even if we take that at face value, that's a really large number. Like the simple act of getting interrupted on a daily basis in the work that you're doing adds up to this huge amount. There are only, I believe, about 20 countries in the world that have a gross national product that's higher than $588 billion. So you can just imagine like how impactful that is.
And there's obviously an impact to you. When you have a lot of interruptions, it increases your stress, and stress is really unhealthy for the body. You can read all these articles about increased cortisol to the brain and how it impacts your health. It also can make you not reliable at work. Your boss might think, hey, this guy doesn't really get his work done because you're interrupted so much. Go.
Go with the next one. All right. It also has a great impact on your team. It's not, interruptions aren't just things that impact you and your work. They impact everybody around you. It makes you look far less dependable if you're not able to actually get through simple daily tasks that you need to get done because you're constantly interrupted and don't know what to do with those. That in turn increases workload on others.
And technical debt, because you're trying to get stuff done, and at the last second you realize something's due, and so you kludge something together. There, I fixed it. It's working. Yeah. But now your entire team has to manage that technical debt. They have to know about that special snowflake case that you put together because you didn't have time to do it the right way.
Quick poll: how many people here are remote workers? Work from home, work from co-working spaces?
Yeah.
About the sixth or fifth of the room. That's a pretty good number, actually. It's more than I expected. Interruptions have an even stronger impact on those of us who work remotely. So we're going to go over that towards the end of the talk and discuss how remote engineers need to think about interruptions in their daily lives.
So why do we do this job? We do it because it's full of interruptions. I don't know why you do this job, but I do it because it's different every day. I walk into the office and I have no idea what I'm going to see. And there's stuff all the time. It's not the same rote work. I don't sit at a desk and do the same thing. It's awesome. But then there's a downside to that.
Interruptions are all around us. We do this work because we enjoy it. Yeah. Operations is very varied stuff. And part of that is because we do get interrupted. So there's a little bit of a paradox there. If we're getting interrupted all the time, how can we reduce the interruptions and keep the fun part of the job? It can happen. And we'll talk about that in just a moment.
So there are other environments that are similar. They have a lot of interruptions. They've dealt with this. They've done studies and they've tried to reduce the interruptions because, life or death. This is mission control at NASA. Obviously, if the wrong people get interrupted at the wrong time, a rocket falls out of the sky and people die. So they've figured out ways to have process so that the people in control of mission control, this is a huge team and there's a lot going on. Make sure that those people don't get interrupted at the wrong time and make a bad decision. Dueling remotes.
Dueling remotes.
Nurses? All right, I'll cover nurses. Nurses get interrupted all the time. They're hanging up a ringer, they're dosing out some medicine, and somebody says, oh, can you tell me, all of a sudden they're dosing the wrong medication, they're doing the wrong dose, they're giving it to the wrong patient, they're hooking up something, they forget to connect it all the way, they forget to turn it on, people die. So the studies here in this area looked at how they could reduce interruptions for critical tasks. They came up with little cubicles that nurses could stand in where they could dose medication. It says, leave me the hell alone, I'm dosing medication. And they don't give it to the wrong patient. They don't give the wrong dose, the wrong medicine.
There are other industries as well. Pilots, the airline industry. If you've listened to John Allspaw talking about no-blame postmortems, a lot of the work that has gone into those has come from the aerospace industry and how they deal with critical events that happen. And they've also dealt a lot with interruptions and how pilots and co-pilots communicate with each other and the
life
rest
or death.
of the crew.
This is life or death too.
Life or
Planes
death.
falling out of the sky.
Yeah. And then there's us. And people these days are starting to get more concerned that as our jobs move into spheres where they're dealing with life and death more often, we're going to be burdened with regulation, we're going to be burdened with oversight, things that make it more difficult for us to do our work. So I think if we can get a handle on a little thing like interruptions that make us more efficient and reduce the number of errors that happen in our daily work, make us more productive, then hopefully we can make a slightly better future for all of us.
Yay. But interruptions are the job, as we said. So we like the interruptions. They're cool. They make the job interesting. But we still need to be able to manage them.
So let's fix it.
You are your own worst enemy. That smartphone you carry, your laptop, you've got all kinds of apps. They pop up, they notify you, hey, your friend wants to talk. Look, somebody liked your thing on Twitter and they retweeted it. These are interruptions. And when you allow yourself to be interrupted by all that stuff, you're your own worst enemy. If you're at work and you're looking at Twitter, you're looking at Facebook, you're looking at whatever, Snapchat, that's an interruption that's impacting your productivity. So you need to be able to turn that stuff off. You look at all the interruptions that you get during the day, which ones do you absolutely need to do your job? Turn off everything else. That includes work interruptions. So if you have notifications that you really don't need to get at work, turn those off.
Right. So there's a little story here. Randall Munroe, the author of the XKCD comics, found that destructive urges like this were impacting his daily work a few years ago. And he decided he had to figure out what to do. He had to deal with it. And being coming from a very scientific background, he decided to look at this, take a very scientific approach to this. He went out and he found that looking at Facebook, looking at Twitter, looking at other social media contexts regularly actually has a very similar effect to a nicotine hit in your brain. It causes a small release of dopamine, and you get very addicted to it. This is the same reason why people constantly go back to their email and say, let me just take a look and see if somebody sent me an email. Nothing yet? All right, I'll come back in 5 minutes and take a look. Then come back in 3 minutes instead and say, oh, any new emails yet? Nope, nothing. Okay, carry on. Every time you do that, every time you go to one of these sites, go to one of these places where you're expecting an update to come in, whether one comes in or not, your brain rewards you and tells you that you did the right thing. So he did a little experiment. He decided that before he would look at any social media, he would turn off his computer, power it back on, and then go over to whatever site he was going to look at, Reddit, Facebook, Twitter, whatever it was. He quickly found that delaying that response to getting that hit, that high from looking at whatever he was looking at, just broke the addiction cycle completely. All he had to do was just turn off his computer, turn it back on, and those, if you have a fast computer and you can do that in like 30 seconds, that's great, but even that short period of time was enough to just not make him want to do that anymore. So there are different approaches you can take. You can be aggressive like that. There are browser add-ons you can get. Chrome has some really wonderful ones that actually don't let you go to certain sites or slow down your access to certain sites that you specify during whatever your work hours might be. And they really help with just reducing the desire to go and look at these things all the time.
You can also just turn off all the buzzing and beeping and booping on your phone. Ignore those little notification numbers that come up. Put your phone in your bag so that you're not looking at it. Because if it's sitting on your desk and it's buzzing all day, unlike his, you're going to look at it.
Balancing small and large tasks. So it helps to break apart large tasks into smaller ones for a number of different reasons. Smaller ones are much more defined and easier to complete. It's just good work habit anyway. But there's also a lot of balance involved. If you're interrupted when you're completing some large task, if you are interrupted at the end of the task when you're maybe 95% of the way through, it's not so bad. You can usually find your way back in because you already have like a lot built up and a lot invested in the work that you're doing. It's a lot easier for you to get back into the tasks that you were working on. On the other hand, if you get interrupted in the very first part of the task, very early on, the studies that are out there at the moment show that it's very difficult for you to get back into that.
The key here, though, is when you break up these large tasks into small tasks, have some kind of hit at the end. You're accomplishing some milestone in the larger task. Right. That way you get that dopamine hit. I accomplished something. If you get interrupted, you really only lose the small task instead of focus on the larger.
Right. There's also something called Code Tea Days, which we've been doing at Etsy for a while now. And the concept is very simple. Any day that starts with the letter T, any day that starts with the letter T, in the last time I gave this talk, I said any day that ends in the letter T, and nothing happens on those days. So any day that starts with the letter T is a day that you can spend putting aside your interruptions, all your ticket work, answering emails, and so on, and focus on a single task that you want to get done. It may be a software project, it may be something else. You talk to your team, you see if it's okay for you to take that time off, because it's obviously going to impact them, because they'll have to pick up any extra work that comes in. And once you have taken 3 Code Tea days, you present whatever you were doing to the rest of the team. So progress can be seen, and we can see how effective these days are. And these really help with just eliminating interruptions altogether. Obviously, it's not something you can do every day. I'd love to do it in every day that ends in Y, but that's not going to happen. So every other day, we find every Tuesday and Thursday, people who want to take these days, it greatly increases their productivity not to have to deal with daily interruptions.
You don't even have to be that specific about it. You don't have to have a special day. Yeah. You can just have a day that you choose for you to get work done where you're not going to do anything else but this one project, and everybody leaves you alone. And multitaskers are really confident people. I know because I'm a multitasker, and I'm damn good at it.
She's not a multitasker. She can't multitask to save her life.
12 balls in the air. Mm-hmm.
Hey, the difference is I know I cannot multitask. I try and multitask. It's terrible. It just doesn't work. My wife's in the front row right now. She's shaking her head. She's like, no, he can't do it. Bad things happen. Multitasking is really dangerous. It's a trap that we fall into. People think that they can multitask. Oops, sorry, skipped ahead one. People think they can multitask very well. It's no big deal. I'll have this task going on this time, and another task going on another time.
Like texting while driving.
Texting while driving is the key. It's one of the most common things that are discussed today. It's an interruption. You're interrupting your driving task in order to focus on texting. And texting while driving has roughly the same impact as a 0.08 blood alcohol level. It's really dangerous. This is where we're talking about things that have life and death impact in our work. Okay, you're not texting while coding, but it's still difficult to multitask.
You could be texting while coding.
You could be multitasking.
You could be
so
texting while coding.
Here's a little bit more detail on how bad multitasking is.
Only 2% of the population can actually multitask.
Right.
So ask yourself, are you in the 2%? Probably not.
Probably not. I think I see about 100 people in this room. There may be 2 people here who can actually multitask.
And when you multitask, you actually lose 10 IQ points. So if you're already challenged, you really can't afford to lose 10 IQ points.
So a few years ago, researchers in Paris did a study where they broke their victims? I guess?
Yeah, victims.
Victims.
Sure,
they
let's
broke
go
their
with
victims
that.
up into 3 groups, and they gave the first group one task to do. It was a pretty menial task. Here's some letters, put them in order. Here's some numbers, put those in order, and just keep going until we tell you to stop. They took a second group, and they said, okay, you're going to start with only putting letters in order, and then when we tell you to, you're going to switch and put numbers in order. And then when we tell you to, you're going to switch back and put letters in order, and you're going to flip back and forth when we tell you to do that. The third group had the same task, the two different things they had to do, and every now and then they'd be given a random third task to start working on. And what they found was that when you're working on only one task, both hemispheres of your brain are active, and they happily focus on this one thing. They can do it, no problem. When you have 2 tasks that you have to switch between, one hemisphere in your brain is active at any one time. The other seems to just sort of keep state. Not sure why that's flickering. Keep state. Getting interrupted
by his own talk.
The other side of your brain seems to keep state, and when you switch back to the other task, okay, great, it picks up, and the first task kind of goes on standby. That's okay. You can juggle 2 things somewhat well.
Because you have 2 halves of the brain, not 3.
They found that if you actually have to juggle more than 2 tasks, in the case of the researchers doing 3 tasks at the same time, they found that regularly one of the 3 tasks was completely forgotten, and the 2 tasks that they were working on, the error rate in those tripled. So simply just trying to do more than 2 things, your brain just isn't designed to handle.
And that's not actually multitasking. That's actually swapping one process out and doing something else and just being able to swap back the other one.
Right. You waste about 2.1 hours a day on this.
This is probably where the 588 billion came from.
This is probably where it came from. So it's pretty impactful.
546
Ah,
hours annual. What are you doing?
I don't know. My clicker's not doing the right thing. There you go. Sorry. Okay.
So really, you need to stop. You need to stop trying to multitask. It doesn't work. If you think it does, then you're one of those people like me who's confident that you can multitask, and you really can't. So
Simple things like using lists, using ticket systems, a process like Get Things Done is incredibly helpful here. It really helps you organize your day and focus on the things that you really, need to get done.
using a ticketing system is good. If people tend to call you and walk up to your desk and bug you, put in a ticket, because maybe you're not even the right person to bother. Put in a ticket, and it allows you to get to it when you can. It's asynchronous as opposed to, I need you right now.
The last time we gave this talk, somebody asked me what my workflow method was, what I used to manage my time. And afterwards, the gentleman said that he was expecting me to say something like OmniFocus or Get Things Done or something. And I don't. I have a piece of paper and a pencil. And I just write down every day the things that I need to get accomplished today.
That is so cute. He uses a piece of paper and a pencil. But it works for him. I use my phone. I set lots of calendar appointments that pop up, double alarms. You need to be here, you need to do this. And then I know, okay, this is the block of time when I'm going to do that. And then I stop the other thing and I focus on the thing that I need to do.
You need to find the thing that works for you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different options out there. And generally, everybody I've spoken to about this, and I've spoken to a lot of people about this, people have different options that they like to use, but there is one that tends to work for any given person.
Trial and error, figure out what works for you, but definitely try different things. If something you're doing now doesn't work, don't just try to force it. Keep trying different things until you find something, but then stick with that.
Yeah.
And getting things done is a productivity method. It's kind of complicated if you do the whole thing, but it's basically just dealing with things right away. When something comes in, you decide what bucket it goes in. Do I deal with it now? Do I deal with it later? If you just do that part, it can be very simple to process things as they come in so they're not all stacking up and you have to deal with them.
Has anyone here read Time Management for Systems Administrators? What? There's only like 10 hands in the air.
It's a book. I can't
Okay,
read the books
it's a
either.
great book. It came out in the 90s. Still very relevant today.
I think it's been updated.
Yeah, I think that there have been a couple of updates. Tom Limoncelli wrote it. Very worthwhile reading.
It's written for ops people. It's not a dry book.
Okay.
You're not able to click, are you? Oh, look, our slides are frozen.
There we go. Okay.
So task switching is a little bit different than multitasking. Task switching is when you choose to switch to something. You're not just trying to juggle 12 balls. You're like, well, I'm going to put this ball here, and I'm going to do this one. This comes into play when you start working on something that takes a while, like, say, compiling. You say, oh, this is going to take like 25 minutes. I'll go look at Reddit. And then 6 hours later, you've forgotten that you were compiling something. It's time to go home.
Right.
How many of you have gone to your computer, pulled up a window that's been buried behind like 100 other windows and discovered something you started 3 days ago that you forgot about? Yay.
Yeah, everyone.
Yay.
All right, I have a better one. Okay, hands up if you have more than 10 tabs open in your web browser right now. Oh, good. Okay, more than 20. More than 30. More than 40. More than 50. More than 60. More than 70. More than 100.
I think you should sit in the
All
audience.
right, we win. Okay. So this is exactly this. You start up. I swear to God, like 10 of those tabs are just trying to learn Golang. It's crazy. I'll get to that one day. But this is task switching. At its core, we have all these things open. We keep piling things on and forgetting to get back to the old ones.
That tab thing kills you because you're looking for a tab, and when you get that many, you don't even have an icon at the top anymore. It's just like a pixel. So you're trying to find the one you want, and you're clicking through, and then you find one like, oh, I forgot about that.
Right. And in the meantime, you've probably gone through like 10 other things that have distracted you, and you need to get back to as well.
So we have a 3-minute attention span, really. So it's very hard for us to deal with interruptions because they're so alluring. It comes up and it's so fun to switch to something because my attention span just ended and whoop, squirrel.
It's pretty bad. It's coupled with the fact that once you do get interrupted, and this goes back to the point I was making towards the beginning of this talk, when you get interrupted, the probability of you actually getting back into the task that you were working on and getting it completed drops to about 40%. And that's really, really low.
Yeah.
So if every 3 minutes you have a natural tendency to go look for something else that you want to do instead of, back again.
This is what it's like all the time with him.
instead of just working on, just continuing to focus and power through whatever you're doing, the probability of actually getting back and finishing things takes a big hit. And this number varies. Again, if you're near the beginning of the task, it can be as high as 80%. If you're near the end of a task when you get around to it, it can go down to like 20%. But it's about here. And when you do get back.
This is a productivity killer.
It's a big productivity killer. I think a lot of us have heard that statement that once you get distracted by something, and you have to go back into the task you're doing, it takes 25 minutes to get back into it. This is really where a lot of this
We got interrupted a lot when we were writing this talk. And every time we got interrupted, we'd be like, where were we? Let's go back to the beginning and start over.
Yeah. Alert design. How many people here are on call at any given time?
Not today, but anytime.
Yeah. Good
lot.
number. Okay.
Yeah.
Alert design is really important. It's something that we've been focusing on at Etsy for a couple of years now, and trying to improve sort of the quality of our alerts. I'll give you an example of how bad things used to be. When I started at Etsy in 2010, I didn't have data going back to 2010, but 2011, we were getting on average 300 pages per day. It works out to about 1 page every 5 minutes. In the day, if you just take a look at the working day, it's about 1.5 minutes between pages.
When did you sleep?
Never. I'm just getting paged all the time. So, a lot of this came down to very poor alert design. We really need to do something to address it.
But you did.
Right. So this is a quote that John Allspaw showed me when we first started planning this talk. Herb Simon in 1971 said, "Information is not a scarce resource, attention is. The world we live in, we're always generating more and more information. We're never going to generate less information. We try not to throw information away. I have logs that go back 2-3 years more for some of them. I just don't like throwing information away. It's always there. We're always making new stuff. But
I always think the information's important.
And you
So
always think
we
it's important,
increase the number of inputs that we're getting.
Right. But attention is very finite. You can only have so much of it. You're not able to just generate more attention. I'm just going to be twice as attentive today. It doesn't work like that. So we did a couple of things. One of the ones I want to highlight, a colleague of mine, Laurie Dines, wrote a tool called Ops Weekly. It's open source. I'll have the link up there in a moment. And it had a couple of different goals. One was to collect status updates for the week and let people kind of share what they were doing, which was very nice. But it also gathered statistics on all of our Nagios alerts. And this is what happened last week. I just put the slide in today. When we're on call, we take a look at all of the alerts that come in, and we tag them, whether action was taken or whether no action was taken, and then there are subcategories below those. So just last week, 83 alerts out of about 116 had no action taken on them because the check was faulty. And the Ops Weekly tool really helps us look at this and say, well, why are we getting alerted so much? What are these alerts? Why are we getting all of these things? And before we had this, it was really hard to actually pin down and say, well, some percentage of our alerts are spurious. We don't need them. This is a particularly bad week because we were working on a disk health check alert and actually broke it and caused a whole bunch of machines to say that the disks were broken when they really weren't. But the tool itself is really what helps us find what we need to focus on and clean up in our alerts.
Yeah, when you're setting up alerting, you can alert on everything.
Right.
But should you?
So skipping forward to, there's the link to Ops Weekly if anyone would like to get it. Skipping forward to the present day, this is kind of what happened when we really started looking at the alerts we have. So 2011, we're looking at about 300 alerts, 300 pages per day. We had a hack week at the end of 2011. It was wonderful. We did nothing. The entire team did nothing but clean up Nagios alerts. We got those down to about 60 pages per day on average, which is still really high, but it was much better than 300. Like we could handle that. We kind of went along with that. 2012, 2013, it was fine. 2014 was when we really started using Ops Weekly and really took that further push into where these alerts are coming from, what's going on with them. We got those down to, on average, about 12 pages a day. Now, Carolyn's making a face because, yeah, that's still high. Like, I don't want to get paged 12 times a day if I'm on call. That can happen at night. That can happen during the day. You don't know. It's a lot better than 300, though.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So we continue to make improvements and see why these alerts come in. And really try and practice good alert hygiene.
So Avleen said something really cool here. He said that the entire team stopped doing other stuff for a week
It was hard.
and focused on this.
Yeah.
So if your company, your organization has this problem, maybe a good idea is to take the whole ops team and just say, we're going to fix this. Because think about the impact on your whole ops team getting that many alerts.
Not just your ops team, but the entire company. If other people depend on you to get
yeah.
things done, and you're just sitting there, silence, 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 silence,
How
acknowledge
do you
silence.
even parse that many alerts?
Right. It just, yeah, I would just leave my phone on
Select
my
all,
desk, and it would
delete.
just buzz all day, and I'd assume something was broken, and eventually figure out what it was. Earlier this year, at Velocity in Santa Clara, Laurie Dines and Ryan France gave a really, really good talk on alert hygiene.
In their pajamas.
In their pajamas. It's really, really it's definitely worth watching. Please go see it. It's on, I believe it's on YouTube. Ryan's nodding. Good. Okay, so like I said, we got these alerts down to about 1 every 2 hours on a 24-hour average, or 1 every 40 minutes-ish during the workday, and that really helps whoever's on call not just focus on sitting there silencing a pager, but getting other things done too.
And we'd like to rely on tools. Tools are cool. There's a new app every 5 seconds, it seems, for something to help you organize, to make lists, to alert you about things. But if you have too many tools, those are interruptions as well. Mail, calendar, ticketing system. Those
Right.
are the basic tools.
Right.
Maybe you need a couple of other things, but you don't need 300 different tools on your phone and your computer. That's just more stuff to try to track.
Right.
I know I've gone through that where there's a new tool that'll allow me to organize and make a list.
You have
Those
like 5
become-
tools to manage lists.
Yeah, then you need a tool to manage the
tool.
tools.
Yeah.
And you end up with, you put data in and then you never look at it again. So it's like a place where data goes to die.
So using tools is a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
While on the one hand we say, you should reduce the number of tools you're using, try and keep it focused down to things that have very, very useful applications, and not have 50 different things to get through your workday.
And be discriminating about the tools you use. If you try out some new app and it really doesn't work, just delete it.
You can really abuse a tool though. Like, this is crazy. I haven't actually ever seen a board like this, but I know they exist. Other people have told me they exist, and I have a picture.
I don't
so
know if
it must
that
be true.
wall goes all the way around the whole company. Awesome!
Oh, sweet! Woo! That's wonderful. I had no idea who's that.
Yay!
That's crazy. Like, I looked at that and I'm thinking, how do you know what's going on at any one time? I mean, it's got to be difficult, right? It's not your wall. So you can definitely have tool abuse as well. I think that's really the key here. So
Don't try to make email into a ticketing system or a calendar. Use the tool for what it's intended for, what it's really good at.
right. So try and limit the number of tools you use and use them to their fullest as much as you can.
Focus.
Focus is hard, right? I have a problem with focus. I have attention deficit disorder. It makes it difficult to focus on things for any period of time. Like, not even that 3-minute attention span. You show me something like squirrel, and like my attention's gone. There was one point. I live in Michigan, in the U.S., and it's this is a snowy picture out there. It snows like this. I was up visiting family last year, and we were talking about something. I don't remember what it was. And I looked out of the window, and I saw a squirrel on a banister like this. I was done. That's it. I got to get over there. I got to take pictures of the squirrel, and I did that for like 5 minutes. It was crazy.
A real squirrel.
Right. So in addition to abusing tools and these other things, there can be other reasons that you have a hard time paying attention, and it's worth just keeping those in mind. I'm certainly not going to give any medical advice, but it's good to keep these other issues in mind.
Yeah, if you're trying everything that you can, everything that we tell you, and it's still not working, you can go read up on other things that you can do that aren't the things we're talking about.
Yeah.
There, we're not giving medical advice.
There you go. So high priority interruptions.
Oh yeah. Okay. So when we did this talk, we tried to do it over IRC, but that doesn't work because Avleen always says, "Be right back," and then he never comes back to IRC, and so eventually it's like 2 a.m. for me, and I have to go to bed. So I went up to New York and I went to the Etsy offices, and I thought we'd sit in a quiet corner and we'd work on this talk for a whole day. I got a whole day. We can get the whole talk done in a day. No, every single person in the company came up to Avleen at least once to say, "Hey, Avleen, what are you doing?" Working on a talk. "Oh, what's it about?" "Interruptions."
These interruptions are really bad. Like, this is an actual, like, there's 2 guys talking to me and asking me questions about something. One of them's in the front, second row right here. I'm gonna poke at him. But through no fault of theirs, they wanted to come talk to me because I was present. I'm normally not in the office, and they needed to talk to me about how things are going, new projects that are coming up. They needed advice on something. They wanted to consult. And it makes it difficult. In-person interruptions are incredibly costly because once somebody comes up to you, or once you go up to somebody and you're talking to them, all of their attention shifts to focus on you, and everything that they were doing
Top priority all of a sudden.
is gone. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Etsy has an open floor plan office. I have a fairly open floor plan office. You have to break yourself from the habit of walking up to someone's desk to ask them a really easy question that you could email. If you don't need the answer right now, don't walk up to their desk, because you're going to interrupt whatever they're doing, and then they're going to have to go back and figure out where was I, which window was I in, what was I doing. It's a really easy thing to do, to walk up to someone's desk. It's a harder thing to do to train yourself not to do it.
Instant messaging is a big killer here as well. Microsoft Research did a study on the impact of instant messaging back in 2001. And they found it to be one of the worst ways, apart from in-person interruptions, that you can actually distract someone from their task and completely ruin their ability to do work. Instant messaging also covers things like email pop-ups, anything that pops up and tries to grab your attention to let you know that something's happening. One of the worst offenders of this, if I see a lot of MacBooks here, the notification center. It's always just like throwing things up. There's always stuff that you can see. It's just there, and you just have to look at it once it's there. Just downhill.
If you think about a tool like email is a great asynchronous mode of communication. I can email Avleen, and if he's busy, he doesn't have to read it until he's ready. And when he reads it, then he responds, and then I'll see it. But I don't have to be waiting for him to respond. Right. It's not that important that I get his attention right now. Yeah. If you set up your email to notify you every time you get an email, you've just completely defeated the asynchronous method there. You've made it like, oh my gosh, it's in your face, just like somebody instant messaging you or walking up to your desk. It's
really simple to turn off notifications. Most people, if you ask them, if you send an email to somebody, do you expect them to reply within 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
Some people do.
Some people do, but it's actually fairly rare. Like, most people are happy with accepting that email is completely asynchronous. You'll send something off, and then you'll get a reply. We have some shaking heads. Totally agree. There are people who are like,
did you get my email?
Did you get that email I just sent you?
I
just sent that email. Did they get it?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
It totally does happen. So certainly there are some environments where that's difficult. We'll get into culture a little bit where we talk about this in a few minutes.
Then there are the chronic interrupters. We have one in the audience today. So we were in the speaker lounge tweaking our slides and running through them, and sitting next to another speaker who shall remain unnamed, and he kept interrupting too. And he was the same person that was interrupting at Etsy.
Yeah. Hey, what are you guys working on? Slides?
But
for your interruptions talk? Yeah.
Yeah. But then there's also interrupting yourself, which Avleen did, drove me crazy. He ate this sandwich.
Oh my God.
Shut up. For breakfast, like 2 days ago, yesterday, I don't know. And he has told about 10 people about this amazing sandwich, which is basically bread, cheese, ham, bread.
There was no cheese. It was bread,
Whatever.
ham, and that was it. This sandwich was amazing, and I'm going to talk about it for about 10 minutes now.
Nope.
All right, sorry.
Okay. But we'd be in the middle of something, and somebody would walk in and say, oh, did you hear about this amazing sandwich I had? Like, what are you doing? We're talking on the talk.
Happens all the time.
Don't do that.
So culture, there's a lot of things that we've mentioned so far that you can address for yourself. The tools you use, for example, these are all things that you can improve on your own. But a lot of dealing with interruptions actually involves working with your team, your larger organization, and the culture at your company.
Which requires buy-in from everybody else, because if you try to just do it as yourself, that doesn't change the culture, usually. Right. So everybody likes to be the superhero. I love being the superhero. Somebody comes up to me and says, hey, I have a problem. I'm like, I can fix that. Yeah, I'm the superhero. I get a cape. No. As you level up in your career, you need to be able to focus more. You become less the person that's doing tickets and little things that can take short periods of time, and you need 2-3 hours of time to focus on something really complex technical. If your culture is that everybody can interrupt you whenever the heck they want, how are you ever going to focus? How are you ever going to be senior engineer working on the hard tasks?
Not only that, but a lot of places that I have worked and I've seen, we stick the junior engineers with the ticket work. We stick them with the interrupt work. So we're training people and saying, hey, you guys at the bottom of the ladder, you're going to do the stuff that is constantly getting you interrupted. We're training them and saying that this is what work is like. And as they get more senior, as they need to work on larger projects,
they haven't really developed the skills.
Right.
Yeah. They also end up being those point people. So people remember when Avleen's a junior engineer. Oh, I go to Avleen when I need that. Well, now Avleen is not a junior engineer anymore. You don't go to Avleen. But he's trained everybody. The culture is such that, well, I know the people I go to those people. But what happens when those people change? One thing I like to do is when I have junior people, I give them small projects that require them to focus for longer than just a ticket. They're not really heavy, deep projects, and they can go to a more senior person to get help. But then they have something that's their own that they can work on that takes more focus. That allows them to see that there are different kinds of work that they're doing, and it helps them to get the skills that they're going to need as they go up in their career. That's a great thing. Your culture should support that.
How many people here use something like IRC or Slack, HipChat, Campfire?
All of the above.
Some kind of Skype, whatever kind of textual communication works. Great, a lot of people. At Etsy, we use IRC very heavily. We have a channel called War Room, and it has some very special rules. Nothing is spoken about in War Room except when there is some kind of emergency. The site is down, a database server just crashed, something critical just happened that needs attention from multiple people, often multiple people from different teams. We set up this IRC channel as a place where people can come focus outside the regular operations channel, the regular DBA channel.
So people aren't asking other people out to lunch and
exactly.
whatnot.
So you don't mix a lot of communications, and you can really focus on the things that need to be done immediately.
A thing that we do is we make sure that we've got the people working on the problem, the emergency, and then we've got a point person. All the people that want to know, is it working? When is it going to be back? How's it going? What is it down? There's a face right there that can tell you, yes, it's still down. We're working on it. Go away. And then the people actually working on it are behind the scenes, not getting interrupted, so they can actually bring the thing back up.
Yeah. Emergencies are really useful trial for doing a lot of these changes because hopefully they don't happen too often. And when they do, you can really test whether your engineers can focus on what they're doing. And if they cannot, then it may be time to look at ways to address that.
Yeah. Meetings. Ha! This is a great one because I'm a manager and he's a maker. So we sit on opposite sides of this one. Now, if Avleen describes what I do, it's put lots of meetings on the calendar so that he can't get any work done.
Meetings, meetings, meetings. My day is full of meetings. I don't like it. As a maker, I like to spend large blocks of time. I may have to write some software. I may have to fix some bugs. And it's very difficult to do that in short blocks, like 30 minutes, because it takes me usually about 30 minutes to work up to what I'm trying to tackle if it's a large task or something. It just doesn't work like that.
So if your calendar looks like this, you're not getting anything done, right? When are you going to actually do work because you got so many meetings?
There's a little trick I have when it comes to managing my calendar. I actually have a standing meeting that is an all-day meeting for Mondays, and it just says, no meeting Monday. And people say, a lot of people laugh and say, that doesn't work. It turns out it really does work. Whenever people try to schedule me for a meeting, they say, hey, you're busy on Monday. Can you take a break from whatever you were doing and come to this because it's really important, we have no other time? Or they just look at it and say, he's busy on Monday, let's do it on another day. And my Mondays, for the most part, are completely empty.
You probably can't get away with that 5 days a week.
No.
But it is a good tool to use. You can also talk to your manager and say, all these meetings that cut through the middle of my productivity times, it's really hard to get stuff done. Can we have the meetings at a certain time of the day or certain days of the week? What I try to do is to try to have the meetings early in the morning. So that if I'm going to bring technical staff in, they're going to be early in the morning when everybody's there, or the people that I need, and then they have the rest of the day. Instead of putting something at 11, so that somebody that comes in at 9, comes in, they have a couple hours, and then all of a sudden 11, and then they don't go to lunch till 1, and I just broke up their big productivity block. That stinks.
If you use Google Apps, you can actually change the default length of a meeting. By default, it's an hour.
That's what I was going to say.
Hour meetings? How many meetings need to be an hour? I usually, if I have hour meetings, a lot of times I'll go into the meetings and within 15 or 20 minutes, we're like, all right, it's done. We figured out what we needed to. Let's move on.
So why is the default an hour?
Well, I have a little theory. I think there are some people out there who really like meetings, like you.
I don't like meetings.
And they just really want to talk for an hour.
My job is to talk to people. As a manager, I need to know what's going on. I need to go talk to stakeholders. I need to talk to management above me. I need to talk to my people. So I need to be in meetings. But I agree, too many meetings is bad. And I try not to have meetings. I try to use stand-up instead and get everything out there. If we decide we need a meeting, then we agree, yes, we need a meeting. Let's set one up. How long? Who should be there? That's key, too. If you're going to set up a meeting, don't invite the entire ops team unless you need the whole ops team there. Is there one person who can represent the project, that can come to the meeting, provide status, and leave?
Yep.
And the meeting that I hate the most, the one where you go around the table and everybody says what they're doing. You don't need 20 people in a room going, well, yesterday I worked on this, and for 15 minutes they go on, and then the next person does it, and that's all day.
Yep. We used to do that at Etsy when I first started. We had a smaller ops team, and it was a handy way to discuss what everyone did. We got rid of that pretty quickly, though. It's
Yeah.
just, it wastes time. We just do that over email now. We send out an email once a week saying what everyone did. No need to discuss it in a meeting unless there's something critical.
Email's great for that. Email your manager, say, here's what I'm working on, and now you don't need a meeting.
Ta-da.
How urgent is the thing you need? How urgent is it that you get Avleen right now? Do you need him right now, or can he respond tomorrow? Is it something you need next week? The types of communication you use matter. So if you're using something like chat and it's going to pop up on his screen, and he's right in the middle of debugging some really complicated code, and all of a sudden, boop, Ryan says, hey, dude, what are you doing? I have a question. Sorry, I'm just picking on you, Ryan.
Yeah.
Maybe you could have just emailed him, and then later in the evening when Avleen goes back to email, he says, oh, Ryan had a question. Yeah.
I mentioned that we use IRC pretty heavily at Etsy.
That's cool.
We do. It didn't always used to be the case. For a while, it was very heavily used by engineering and some people outside engineering. And we made a pretty concerted effort to push IRC and get everybody onto the same communications platform. It really helped, but one part of that was educating people that leaving a message for somebody in IRC is asynchronous. If they're there, they may reply. If they're away, they'll get back to you and let you know.
And it's Avleen, it'll be 3 or 4 days from now.
It was definitely an education that had to happen. We definitely had to, yeah, definitely. But we had to teach people. We had to say, look, you may be used to using Google Hangouts or Skype or something and expecting an immediate response back. Let's change this a little bit. Let's let, if you don't need a response immediately, leave a message. You'll get something back. And if it becomes urgent, maybe go up and find them or pick up the phone, call somebody.
So IRC is another one of those where people set up notifications. So if their username's mentioned, it pops up a little thing and says, hey, you were just mentioned in IRC in this channel.
Yeah.
That's an interruption. Do you really need that?
It can be handy sometimes, but yeah.
It can be, but if you're trying to work, you turn all that stuff off.
Yeah.
Because that's just another squirrel thing you're going to switch to. Oh, look, somebody mentioned me.
Visual indicators are pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I like wearing headphones at work because it helps me focus on what I'm doing. But it also provides a cue to other people that if I have headphones on, it may not be the right time to interrupt me. I may be pretty deep in something.
But other people need to know that's the signal that you're sending.
Right.
Not just that you're wearing headphones because you're listening to music.
Exactly. This is, again, it's a cultural thing that needs to be developed. It can be developed simply by saying, hey, guys, if you see people with headphones on, just don't interrupt them right away. Just maybe leave a couple of messages for them, and they'll get back to you when they can.
And some people wear headphones all the time because they work in an open floor plan and they can't focus unless they have headphones on. So maybe those people, you need to ping them some other way instead of tapping them on the shoulder, because you don't know if they're really doing something that they can't be disturbed or if they just wear headphones all the time.
Right. IRC and IM, again, we mentioned these a few minutes ago. They are pretty painful as well. All these things that pop up. Little things like changing your nick, saying, Avleen_away or something, or
Okay.
Avleen_DND. Just tells people, no, not the right time. And you can build on these. There's a lot more that you can do just to kind of push the information forward to people before they actually get to interrupting you.
It's very effective. Google Chat is something we use, and you can set your away status, and you go to Google Chat, somebody and it says they're busy. You don't bother them.
Yeah.
You stop. It's very cool. Then you can stop people from popping up those little Google Chat messages on your screen.
Closed doors I'm not a big fan of, but they certainly do work. We don't have a lot of offices at Etsy. It's mostly open floor plan, which does make it more difficult when you're trying not to get interrupted. But if you do work in an office and you really need to focus, again, just closing the door is a simple thing.
We actually had a guy at work that closed his door and put a sign on the door that said, go away. It worked.
Okay.
Oh, how to take a vacation. Yes, you all need to take a vacation. Not right now.
Hands up if you want to take a vacation right now.
But after the talk.
What? Like 5 people put their hands up. Okay. I just got back from vacation 2 weeks ago. I took a 3-week vacation. It was my first long vacation that I took. And it was difficult. It was really, really stressful. The first week, I did nothing but stress about what was going on at work. It took me a week to stop thinking about work when I'm on vacation. And this, again, this keeps your stress level up, and it really shows you how much we're tuned to thinking about work all the time, constantly, day in, day out, whether you're at work, you're at home. I think by the fact that so few people put their hands up and said they really want to take a vacation, people want to be focusing on their work.
Does that mean you guys already went on vacation? Yes? Or
Maybe
you
this is a
just
vacation.
never?
I don't know.
Yeah.
So learning how to take vacation is actually really important. It reduces your stress levels, and it makes it easier for you to recover when you get interrupted. And it sounds kind of silly saying that, recover when you get interrupted. But it's true. If you are, the more stressed out you are, the harder it is to come back from an interruption and deal with whatever you were working on before.
It allows you to recharge your brain. So when you come back to the office, you're fresh. One of the things you need to do when you go on vacation is you need to not answer the phone or messages or look at IRC because you're on vacation.
Yeah.
So what I do is I have a work phone and I have a personal phone. I call it separation of church and state. So this is where work email goes and all the work people can text me and whatnot. This goes in the bag. This I take on vacation. These are my friends. I want to talk to them sometimes.
I'm slightly, yeah.
There are people who know how to get me on this if they need me,
Yeah.
but very few. So then I can put them in a drawer and go on vacation.
I'm slightly different. Just for personal preference, I don't like carrying 2 devices.
But I don't carry 2 devices.
You don't carry.
I throw
okay.
that one in a drawer.
I just don't like managing 2 devices. How's that? Okay. Too much work for me. I have a simple brain. I get distracted. Squirrel, again. So I have one device, and it has my work and my personal email on there. And most of the time, it's actually not too bad. You know, if I'm just out for the evening or something, I may check my work email. Just make sure nothing's broken. I probably shouldn't, but it's there, and okay, I do it. When I go on vacation, I actually tried something for the first time. I just deleted the work email account from my phone.
That's awesome.
It would take me longer to actually get the account back, add it back in, go through all the 2-factor auth and so on, than I cared about what was going on.
That's like the Randall Monroe experiment, where he had to reboot his computer to go into social media. He'd have to install the app to read his work email, so he didn't. Then he got to go on vacation.
Really helps a lot.
Yes, and it's important to go on vacation. As a manager, I want all my people to go on vacation. I want you to be able to go out of the office and not think about the office for 2 weeks, do something fun with your family, and then come back and be like, yes, I'm ready to work.
I want more vacation.
Yeah, that's up to you. Talk to your manager. Oh my God, this is Avleen. So trying to work with him in IRC was be right back. Something came up at work. So when I started working with him, I'd see the be right back. I'd think, okay, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, go get a snack, come back.
Got
20
distracted
minutes,
by something.
switch windows, switch back, 30 minutes, an hour, the next day.
Eventually, I'd come back maybe 3 days later and say, oh, by the way, I remember we were working on this thing. Let's keep
I'm
going.
back. Like,
Yeah.
you expect me to wait. It was actually his wife, Brandy, who said, you know he's not coming back. So just don't wait for him. Great.
Setting expectations is really important because if you're the person getting interrupted, you need to let the person who is doing the interruption know what the state of things is. If they're going to stand around waiting for you,
Yeah.
the chances are they're just going to come and interrupt you again
Yep.
and again and again. If you tell them, I'll have this done in 5 minutes, I'll have this done in 10 minutes, they're going to come back and check and make sure that it's done.
It's better to say, I have something I have to do. I don't know how long it's going to take. Let's reschedule. I'll email you when I'm available or text you, or depending on how urgent it is, I'll let you know when I'm done with this. Instead of making somebody wait for you, because they might actually wait for you.
Yeah.
Don't want that.
I'm sorry.
You are not. And ask for help. Go to your manager and say, look, I'm trying all this stuff. It's not working. I really need to focus. I don't feel like I'm accomplishing enough. Help. And it could be that your manager can help change the culture, do headphones or something else, move you to a different place where you're less in a high traffic area. There are things that can help reduce your interruptions that your manager can help that you might not be able to do by yourself.
I think this is actually one of the hardest things to do because a lot of people just don't like asking for help, admitting that things are difficult.
Weak.
You just kind of want to power through and get things done. And I got interrupted. That's fine. I'll just keep working. This is really powerful. Managers are around to help you get through these things. They're here to make your work life easier, more comfortable. If they're not, maybe you need a new manager.
I want you to stay. I don't want you to think, this job sucks, I can't get anything done, I'm stressed all the time, I'm finding a new job. I want you to stay because it's expensive to replace you and you do good work. So when you come to me and ask for help, I'm like, yes, I can help increase your happiness at work, which makes you get up in the morning and want to come to work, and then you want to stay and you don't want to find another job. I win, you win, it's a good thing.
All right, so we said we wanted to talk about working remotely. I've been a remote engineer for almost 6 years now in various capacities. And there's a lot that goes into being a remote engineer. A lot of people find, if you haven't done it before, you think, it's pretty easy. Anyone can do it. You just kind of sit down, you do your work, and then it's done, and then you're at home, and hey, play with the cat. It's actually, there's a lot of little intricacies and a lot of details involved in how you can be an effective remote engineer and how you can manage interruptions. The interruptions you get as a remote engineer, very different than the interruptions you get when you're in an office.
And remote worker can be somebody who's permanently remote or somebody who works 1 or 2 days a week from home. The same kinds of things apply.
This happens to me all the time.
How many cats do you have, Avleen?
I have a lot of cats.
How many cats?
I have 8 cats.
How many dogs?
6 dogs.
8 cats, 6 dogs. Plus 2 kids that are homeschooled by Brandy here.
Yep.
He's got a lot of opportunity for interruption at home.
Right. It gets really, really busy. So, and this is pretty common. If anyone's worked at home, and you have a pet or you have other people in the house, this happens all the time.
As soon as the cat is on my computer, I'm not doing anything.
So when I first started as a remote engineer, I thought, this was roughly my schedule. I'll wake up in the morning, sort of, lounge around a little bit, not do very much, go get some breakfast, watch some TV, eat something. Eventually, sometime after lunch, maybe I've looked at email for 5 minutes in between here. I had some lunch, write a little bit of code, play with a laser pointer on, the cat maybe wants some attention or something. Go off, put my, my plate away, come back, realize there was laundry that I hadn't done. Oh, I'll go do that right now. Your entire home life is surrounded. I do laundry sometimes. My wife's saying I do laundry
She's
sometimes.
shaking her head.
Your entire home life is surrounded with interruptions. Whether you have a family and pets and laundry and so on or not, there will always be things around you that are calling for your attention.
So there's this kid's book, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie. And the mouse starts by wants a cookie and then wants a glass of milk and then cleans the house and it just goes on from there. And then eventually the mouse says, hey, I want a cookie, and comes back full circle. That's how it is working from home sometimes, because you start to work and then you think, oh, I need to do the laundry, or I walk downstairs to get a snack and there are dishes in the sink, so maybe I'll just do those because that'll be quick. And then I turn around and there's the cat, and just like this. So you have to stop yourself from doing that. You're there to work. You got to figure out how to have a schedule that works, Avleen.
Right. So my schedule now looks something like this.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't always wake up at 9 o'clock.
His wife is here, so she's nodding.
I don't always wake up at 9 o'clock, but roughly this is sort of a template schedule. You wake up, you have a regular routine. You shower, you get dressed, you go down to breakfast. You start your workday as if you're in the office. This is really, really key.
Yeah.
It's not that you're working from home. It's that you're working, but you're at home or in a co-working space.
If you have your pajamas on and you're kind of lounging around, oh, it's only 8:30. I got time. You
Right.
do something else. Oh, it's 9. That's still early. 9:30. If you get up, get dressed, start your workday.
Right.
That's like a brain signal. Now is when I start workday.
Setting up your work environment is very, very important. It's not, again, it's not just I have a desk somewhere or I'm just going to work at the dining room table. Again, it doesn't really work that way. I have a 4:30, like one of the last things I do, I have a wrap-up tasks day, thing in my day. And one of the things is to clean up my desk. This is what my desk, it's not my desk, but this is what my desk used to look like when I first started. And it was just, there was stuff everywhere, things falling down all the time. And I treat these as if they're interruptions. Every one of these that could fall down or, is in front of my face and distracting me and wants my attention, it's there. I have to look at it. So just doing simple things like setting up your work environment, cleaning your desk, the space around you, can have a really positive impact on.
Also, not having non-work related items on your desk. Have a workspace that's work only, so that your kids' drawings and other stuff doesn't end up on it. So you're like, hey, look at this, and that's another interruption. So have a specific area where you can work that's just work. Of course, that's what my home office looks like. It's a couch, but it is just work.
So we have quite a few remote engineers at Etsy, and making them productive, making remote work life effective, required a bit of a cultural shift for us. One of the things that we try to promote is the idea of remote by default. So if you're an engineer and you need to find somebody else, find another engineer, the idea is not to go up to wherever you assume their desk may be, but to use the tools as if they are a remote engineer, whether they're in the office or not. So whether that's IRC, emails, whatever it might be. So that it also frees up engineers who are otherwise in the office to be able to work, say, from home 1 day a week and still be able to communicate effectively with everyone around them. There's also the topic of extroverts and introverts. People have different personalities. And it's important to recognize that when you interrupt somebody who is an extrovert, they'll behave very differently than if you interrupt them when they're an introvert. And learning about what your coworkers are like, learning about how they react to your interruptions and the impact it has on them as the person doing the interruption is as important as learning how to handle interruptions when you're the interruptee.
Yeah, one of my senior engineers is an introvert, self-admitted, and he's come to me and said, when I get interrupted, it's extremely harmful because it's hard for me to get back on task. Right. He's great, But if you interrupt him, it takes him forever to figure out where was I and what was I doing, and hurts his brain. So I try not to interrupt him. Everybody in the office tries not to interrupt him. Knowing what people's personalities are and how they work is super important. And another thing is when you're doing like remote meetings. So you have some people on, say, Google Hangout and some people in the office. If you have introverts and extroverts, maybe the introverts aren't going to speak up, especially if they're remote. So for managers, it's important to know that. So you have the same 5 big mouths talking all the time. Well, if they're talking, the other people aren't. So you have to be able to engage everybody, even if they're not in the office. So you have to notice that there are those faces up on the screen like the Brady Bunch, and maybe give them a chance. Say, well, what do you think? To the guy or gal that hasn't been speaking, because they're introverted and their brain's still processing and they don't really feel like interrupting the extroverts that are just talking.
Did anyone here go to the mansplaining talk a couple of days ago? Yesterday, maybe?
A couple.
Yeah, a few people. Okay. So there was a really cool tidbit that I learned in that talk about how prevalent interruptions are between genders. So women are far less likely to interrupt men during meetings, during discussions, and so on. And men are pretty much prone to interrupting everybody whenever they can because they want to get their point across. And this also plays out very well with remote engineers. It's difficult when you're a remote engineer, regardless of your gender, to actually speak up on a video conference, on a phone call, because everybody around you in the office they may be going back and forth, there may be a discussion. How do you interject in that?
Yeah. They're engaged face to face, and you're there on the video going, I have a question.
I sit like this a lot, waiting for somebody to say, oh, Avleen wants to talk. Having a moderator is really, really cool. Having somebody lead the meeting and say, I'm only going to let one person talk at a time, and I'm going to take a note of who's wanting to talk. It's a little thing. It's a very little thing. But it's incredibly powerful. When you visit the office, you're going to be something I like to call differently productive.
I learned this.
Yeah. I struggled with this. When I started going to the Etsy office, I found that I was very productive at home because I didn't have all of the in-person interruptions, which is great. But when I went to the office, I had nothing but in-person interruptions. It makes it very, very difficult.
Because everybody hasn't seen you for 3 weeks, and so they
Right.
see you, and they say, oh, Avleen's here, I'm going to go talk to him. That's
Yeah.
what we found when we worked together.
I take this time to be differently productive. I take those interruptions and I put aside a lot of my ticket work, I put aside a lot of my other work, and I have interactions with people. And I take that to be productive. If I go up to people when I'm in the office, when I'm visiting the office, and say, hey, I just want to come chat with you for a few minutes, maybe before they even come up and interrupt me, it really helps kind of foster good relationships, and it makes it possible to get a lot more work done.
It's important because he's building a relationship with his team that he doesn't see except for 1 week a month. But then he has to accept that he's not going to get the same level of work done when he does that.
Yeah. Okay, so we've zipped through this pretty quickly, actually. We've got like 30 minutes left.
Yeah, you have lots of questions then?
Yeah, so we've gone over a lot of these different topics. Where do you begin? What do you start to do, Caroline?
Well, first look at the things that interrupt you the most. What are the biggest interruptions you have? Is it social media? Is it yourself? Are you the one that's changing tasks all the time and not accomplishing things? Is it your workspace? Is it people around you? See if you can change that first, because that'll have the biggest impact on your productivity. And that it might be an easy thing to do as well. If it's something that you're doing yourself and you stop doing it or you turn off notifications, all of a sudden you might have that 2.1 hours a day, you might get it back. That'd be awesome.
The other thing is, there are a lot of tools out there, a lot of things we've suggested that you can use, lists, get things done, the way you organize meetings. All of these won't work for everybody. Everybody works in a different environment. Everybody has different personalities. Trial and error is important. Try these different things. See which one works best for you.
Talk to your manager. Say, hey, I feel like I go home every day and I think, what did I get done today? Nothing. Because you started 200 things, but you didn't accomplish anything. If you talk to your manager about that and say, look, I want to get this done. I want to be able to focus on this one big task, but I feel like the way the office is organized or the way we structure meetings, whatever it is, I need help with this. Maybe we should look at doing it another way. I went to this great talk at Velocity and they said do this. Get that dialogue started, because your manager is one that can start from the top and impact the entire team.
Yep.
Questions?
Any questions?
So you don't have Mike Rambetzi here to ask you when you really go to work, Avleen. So
Yeah.
I'll ask. When do you really
I
go?
just did that schedule that I said I worked. Used to say 9. I used to say I wake up at 8 a.m. I had to adjust that after the last time my boss heard me talk. Any questions? Anybody?
Wow.
One at the
Covered
back.
Everything. Go ahead, yell.
So you say you use email as an asynchronous communication tool a lot.
Yeah.
So if something's not important, you will write an email and you can check that whenever they want. So do you get a lot of email internally at Etsy? Like, how do you triage email? How are you productive with email?
We didn't talk about that, Avleen, about having a time of day. The question was, using email as an asynchronous form of communication, how do you triage email?
Right. So that actually there was a slide early on. I think I actually skipped another point. Focus batching is a really cool way to do that. You set aside blocks of time. You know, let's say you want to spend 2 hours on a particular project. Maybe at the end of that you want to take a little break. So you spend a fixed amount of time, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it is you think you need, doing smaller tasks, reading email, responding to instant messages, maybe going to get a sandwich, whatever. It doesn't have to be, necessarily directly work related, but you batch together tasks of similar amounts of time. So email is something that hopefully shouldn't take a long time. Sometimes it can, and I usually triage my email first thing in the morning, so I clear out my inbox. I'm a big believer in inbox zero. It just helps keep my view clean of whatever I'm looking at. It doesn't always quite get there, but I try.
Select all, delete, inbox zero.
Mark all is red. So you take that initial, you do the initial cleanup at the beginning of the day, and then later in the day, as you go, dedicate blocks of time. And don't just look at email for 5 minutes and then stop, but take that amount of time that you set, whether it was 15 minutes, whether it was 30 minutes. If you finish your email in a few minutes, find something else that's also small that can help take up the rest of that time. So that there won't be a desire later on to look at those other small tasks as well.
Other things you can do, so if you're going to try to batch your day, set alarms. That way you don't start looking at email and 3 hours later you're still looking at email. Say, I'm going to take 30 minutes, look at email, I'm going to triage what's there, pick out the important stuff, file away the junk, delete the spam, and when the alarm goes off, I'm going to switch over and do some of this work that I want to do for the day. And maybe go back to email at lunchtime when you're already interrupted because you're getting up to get food, come back from lunch, have another little spot where you look at email, and then go back to doing your focused work.
Awesome. Anyone else?
So emails and asynchronous communications, it's good to let you have focus, but it has a downside as well. There's a lot of opportunity to misunderstand,
Yeah.
to pass the message through, and also it can help creating silos. In fact, in my team, actually, we're trying to talk more than email.
Okay.
Because we see people just emailing each other.
The comment is that email can cause miscommunication because a lot of communication is lost through email. It can also create silos between people. Sometimes it's hard to discuss things through email because it's a complicated discussion and it doesn't really work through email. Threading can be complicated when you start to have multiple responses and some people top post and some people bottom post. Email is not for everything. So use the tool for what it's best at. I want to find you, I need to talk to you about something. I say, okay, I'm going to email you, ask you if you have some time to discuss XYZ because it's more complicated than we can discuss in email. If it's something simple, I might put an email and say, I have a question.
Yeah.
And then if it becomes more complicated, you can say, let's take this out of email because it's either we're misconstruing what we're saying or it's too complicated to discuss in email. Do you have 15 minutes when we could sit down and talk face to face? And you're still doing this asynchronously, but then you're reserving some time that both of you agree upon is at a good time for both of you.
Yep. Part of the comment was that having email as an asynchronous method of communication can create silos, and that's one thing we definitely want to avoid.
No silos.
The way we address it at Etsy is we have a preference to email mailing lists instead of individual people whenever we can. Unless it really only needs one person's attention and it'll never need anybody else's. We try and send things to, for example, the ops mailing list or the larger engineering list, whatever, so that other people can have visibility and anybody in the company can join those mailing lists. It's completely open. There's full transparency, and it really helps so that if somebody's been having a conversation with me, and the email archive is available to the rest of my team, if I go on vacation, then other people can also help out, go back, see the history, and so on. So.
And you can always delete an email if you're not interested or file it away so you have the information for later. So I don't think it's a big deal to get more email. Maybe some of you don't want more email. But I'd rather get an email that might be of interest to me through a mailing list even if I'm not in the discussion, and I'll just file it.
I think there was a question back there.
Oh, yeah.
At the very back.
Important, and then more specifically, maybe the different definitions people may have of important and urgent.
The difference between urgent and important?
Well, I don't know the difference, but sometimes you get, this is important.
Yeah. It's subjective, isn't it?
Very subjective.
Yeah. So our ticket queue for our stakeholders, they are allowed to set a priority on their ticket. And more often than not, we look at it and we go, oh, no, that's not the real priority. But to them, it is. So it's the same. If somebody has a problem and they think it's urgent, they're going to interrupt you. But you listen to it, you're thinking, that's not urgent. That could have waited a day.
Right.
Why did you interrupt me?
As part of our ticket workflow at Etsy, we use Kanban. A lot of people, a lot of people use that. We've made a lot of modifications the way we implement it and the things we do. But one of the key things is when tickets come in, they generally don't have a due date or a priority assigned to them. And it's the responsibility of the person who's looking at that ticket for the first time to engage with the requester and see how important it is, explain to them the volume work that we already have, and work out where that should fall. And in our case, anybody in the ops team can do that. And it sort of has a nice side effect that it means most everybody on the ops team has an understanding of how busy the overall team is and what kind of priorities we can and should assign to incoming work. And setting up relationships with people who will be opening tickets for you, opening tasks for you, I think it's actually really important. They shouldn't just be people over there that sometimes send you tickets.
That's why we allow our people that are submitting tickets to put a priority on it, because when we see the priority 1 come in, we know they think it's critical. So then that allows us to engage with them to say, it doesn't really sound like a priority 1. Can you wait for this service? Because it doesn't sound that critical. But at least allowing them to tell us up front that they think it's not important or is important, we know how to respond to them to start that conversation.
Anyone else?
Should have stayed back there. Get my exercise.
You should just stay back there.
I know, I will. I got it. What is it?
Does the consequence of that is that you don't need one of requests, can you quickly do this for me? That's not done? Because that's like once you discover you do that, it's going to be shit-faced. It's going to bypass the whole process you just described.
So they're going around the ticketing system and they're going directly to you to do something quick?
Yeah, I mean, this is
That's,
If you have an established workflow and people are working against it and interrupting you constantly, that is, from my perspective, that's something that needs addressed sort of usually higher up. Like management needs to be able to discuss. The managers, if this is happening across teams, then the managers of those teams should be able to talk to.
what if it's the CEO?
If it's the CEO doing it,
Stop doing that.
I don't know, go to the board of directors. Hopefully you have a really nice and friendly board. Carolyn, gentleman in front of Robert.
Oh,
So I'm wondering a little bit about what your IRC stack looks like and how you use that and all the tools you use.
Avleen, what does your IRC stack look like?
It's actually it's relatively simple. So we have a basic IRC server set up. Has anyone seen the chat ops talk that came out of GitHub
Nope.
about a year or two ago? One person has. It's on the use of bots in IRC to help manage your workflow, make your day easier. So, for example, we use IRC Cat, which was developed by a gentleman who used to work at Last.fm. And it just kind of helps us with our daily workflow so that we don't have to, for example, if we want to schedule downtime for a service, we don't have to go open up Nagios, find the host, whatever it is, set the downtime. We can actually just type it right in IRC, and the bot goes in, talks to the APIs and various things. And we use bots very heavily. They're used throughout the development workflow in IRC to note when Jenkins jobs start. We actually have bots that talk to other bots that trigger things to happen as pipelines progress.
Sounds like Rise of the Machines.
It can be we're a little worried about that sometimes. We also, one of the challenges we had was getting non-engineers into IRC. Because I don't mind using WeChat. There are other IRC clients, IRSI, and whatever you want to use. But they're not super user-friendly for people who aren't used to working like in those environments anyway. There's a web-based IRC client called Subway, which we took and modified internally for our use. And honestly, all we had to do was make it look nice and pretty and like somewhat functional, and people were happy to jump on that and say, hey, this is something that I can use, this is something I understand. We looked at the use cases that people had before they started using IRC. A lot of people using Google Hangouts because they like having the history there. It's easy to go back and look at what you have. So we just made the IRC, this nice web IRC client. When you open it up for the first time, it shows you like the last day's worth of history. Easy. It was little things like that that made it fun and useful to people. And it's just kind of interacting with them, finding out what the needs are. But when it really comes down to it, it's not much more than IRC server and then rooms broken up by various teams. Fairly simple. Any other questions?
Nope, go ahead.
How to deal with automated emails, essentially.
Cron. How do you reduce the number of automated emails you get, or how do you? Any techniques for dealing with automated emails that you get? I think that's notifications. That's going to vary by person. Avleen, you have an email process. You want to talk about?
I have a nice email process. I follow a process that a gentleman I used to work with, Mike Arpaia, blogged about a while back. It's not uncommon. I use Gmail at work for all my email, and it lets you have different colored stars for different categories of email. So I have red stars for things that I need to respond to quickly, orange stars for things that I need to take some kind of action on. Maybe somebody's asked me to do something. Yellow stars for things that I need to read. And then after that, I try and have, for the rest of the inbox, like kind of inbox 0, as I mentioned, don't read the emails, archive them, get them out of the way so you're not constantly looking at them. Any automated emails that come in, filter them away. If it's something that actually needs like urgent attention, it probably shouldn't be an automated email. Maybe it should trigger an alert. Maybe you should page somebody. Otherwise, I treat automated emails as purely informational, something that I can look at later on if I need to, instead of being something that needs to drag my attention away and interrupt me from what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, an easy thing to do is filter all those so that you don't see them, and then you can always go back and look at that folder inbox.
I used to not filter email. I used to be one of those people who just left all his email in his inbox and had like 20,000 messages in there and thought, I've marked them all as read. It's no big deal. It's
That's
actually a
overwhelming.
strange distraction, even if they are all marked as read. It's just getting those automated emails just like right out the way helps a lot. And I actually find instead of spending my time scrolling through those, looking at them, manually having to mark them as read or whatever, it just frees up my time and I don't need to look at them. And so far, it's turned out pretty good. Nothing bad has happened.
But you can experiment with different methods. Whatever email client you use will have different ways of managing, whether it's filtering or marking, using the stars.
All right. I think we have time for one more question. There was one up here at the front.
Ooh.
Something I've seen is common across industry, maybe that's my perception, is having someone in the team being on duty on rotation, handling interrupts.
Yes, absolutely. So the comment is one thing that is fairly common in the industry is having one person being sort of the point person, the interrupts person, the duty person.
The gatekeeper.
The gatekeeper. And yeah, Carolyn's team does that. They have one person who...
A big guy at the door like this.
Yeah.
Guy not to come in.
Who's tasked with managing all these incoming interruptions. And if you have a workflow that enables that, that's totally great. We don't have that at Etsy. We tried it kind of. We took a slightly different approach. We have a lot of different product teams. We have the payments team. We have I'm going to blank on what my teams are now. Performance team, front page,
Ops.
and so on. And we take all of the operations people and assign them to different teams. They're not dedicated. They're not the only operations people that do work on them on those teams. For example, I'm assigned to the performance team.
So you're like a liaison.
I'm a liaison. I work with those teams so if they need to find somebody who they can talk to about ops related issues, they can come to me instead of having to just, try and get a hold of the entire team at once or pestering the wrong person. And if I'm not around, there's a backup person, and they can talk to them.
The nice thing about that is he can learn what their issues are specifically. He gets to know how they work and what kinds of things are going to come to ops for.
Yeah.
So when they come to him, he's much more efficient than if they went to a different ops person every single time they had a question.
Really helps interrupt recovery at that point if you have a team large enough to do that. If you're just like one or two person team,
Your host.
that can be kind of difficult.
Then you're everything.
Yeah. And those duties they're certainly not fixed on a sort of semi-regular basis. We rotate, shuffle things around so that people get a lot of exposure to the different things going on. I think that's all the time we have. Thank you very much, everybody.